With the Roland and Boss SP samplers, there seems to be two divisions of design philosophy. On one side you have the rectangles, like the 202, 303, and 404. Pads on the bottom, knobs at the top, numeric display. There is a clear kinship to these. Then you have the other school of thought, the workstation approach. This started with the SP-808 and perpetuated through the 505 and the 606. Today we're going to take a look at that last one. Alright, so I should probably pause here and reference the 555 as well, because it's kind of got its own thing going on. As you can see, it's sort of a unique design in the range. But I more or less consider it to be a 404 on steroids. We'll do an overview of this one as well in this series, but for now, let's get back to the 606. Let's start with the physical build of the 606, shall we? It has a plastic body with a steel base plate. On the panel, you'll find controls for the D-beam, cursor and jog wheel, 16 velocity-sensitive pads, the 4-track sequencer, a dedicated effects section, and of course, that backlit display. On the back from left to right, you have the off-on button, power port, USB connector, MIDI out and in, nice, a digital out and in, also nice, foot switch, stereo inputs, stereo outputs, and the headphone jack. Storage medium is accomplished via compact flash, and it is much quicker than the smart media cards that its predecessor used. Okay, so I'm just going to give you a general overview of this device, my thoughts on it, pros, cons. I'm probably going to compare some of the features of this to its predecessor, the 505. This will not be a complete overview of everything it does. I've actually done a really in-depth video on this device before, back when I first got it. So if you want to watch that, I'll put a link up here in the upper right corner. You can go check that out at your leisure. So anyway, yeah, let me kind of start with some of the cons, actually, because then I want to do positives next. One thing, and this is not really a big deal, but the headphone jack being on the back, I don't know, I really like how on the 202, 303, 404, the headphone is on the front. In fact, I wish like pretty much every groove box and sampler and everything had the headphone on the front. It just makes more sense ergonomically to me. But that's not really a big deal, but you know, it's worth noting that that is a difference for the 606. It's on the back. Something else worth noting is that the inputs are 1/4-inch patch like that rather than RCA, which the others are. I don't really have a preference on which is used. I just wish they used the same thing through all. Because that's made me buy like these adapters and things to try to connect this SP to other SPs that use RCAs. So that's kind of it on the physical. Or no, there's one other thing. I'll mention that it doesn't have a dedicated microphone input or an external mic. So if you like the mic on the 404, or if you'd like to be able to plug in a mic and adjust the gain and that kind of thing, this doesn't have that. It just has regular inputs, so you would have to have an external mic preamp or something else to get mic signal into this device. So that's a difference as well. That's kind of it in terms of physicality. It is a bit of an odd-looking sampler. Definitely does not look like any of the others in the range, or really anything else for that matter. I guess there's a few key features here that borrow from MPCs, like the jog wheel, the cursors, these function buttons that correlate to things that are on the screen, 16 pads. That seems to be more or less MPC inspired, but it's not an MPC. I'll go ahead and say that right now. All right, something else that is unfortunate about this one is there is no auto pitch function. Let me grab my 505 real quick. All right, so with the 505, you see how these kind of look like a keyboard. You know, if you squint your eyes and stand on your head, it kind of looks like a musical keyboard. If you see in my 505 video, you can take a single note, like a bass note, a guitar note, whatever, and tell it to auto pitch that, and it will span that out into like a musical keyboard, so you could play a C and play it. This doesn't have that. It does have pitch adjust, but like a lot of the SPs, it's not very usable. So that is unfortunate. I can't even show it to you because it's not on here. Let me show you something that's sort of similar to that though. So I've got a beat. All right, just a basic beat loop there. I'm gonna go into BPM sync, and this is where you can adjust a tempo. So if you're working in a project that's at 88 BPM and you bring in a loop that's at 94, if you wanted to adjust that, you can. However, it's garbage. Let me show you real quick. I'm gonna move this just 1 BPM lower, right? So I went from 88 to 87. Sounds awful. Let me do it even more and you'll see it. It gets really bad. So, okay, cool. You've got BPM adjust, but you might as well have not have put it on there because it's, to me, that's just simply not usable. You're far better to use either a different SP that has better pitch adjust, like the 202, the 808. Those are very smooth, or a computer to match your BPMs and time stretch, that kind of thing. So that's unfortunate. I think they could have done a better job there. And like I said, why have it if it's not good? Okay. That's about it for detractors, though. There is a lot to like about this sampler. It's definitely more in the workstation category. Not only is it good for making beats, but you can make whole songs. It literally has a song mode. It has a 4-track pattern sequencer. It has these velocity sensitive pads. Has really good effects. So it's a proper music making machine. I have to say, I don't want the negatives to detract you from it because there's a lot here to like. Let me highlight a few of those things. So let me start a little beat here. I've got just some drums and some keyboard riffs. So one thing I really do like is the D-beam filter. It's a really smooth filter, and it's a great like DJ style global filter, and I have found myself using that to enhance performances, not on stage, but like recording a track out of it. Even if I don't make the track on here, I still have run other gear through it just to access that filter so that I could do, build-ups and breakdowns and things in the songs that I'm pushing through it. So I do like the D-beam. It has a synth on the D-beam as well. That to me is more of a novelty. I've literally never used that in a track or anything, but it's there if you want it. It also has trigger on the D-beam, which I don't... Let me see, I gotta... To me, that too is just kind of a novelty. I don't really particularly see that being a great function in terms of need, but it's there if you want to play with it. It's kind of fun. D-beams are sort of cheesy in general. I guess Roland engineers had some vision of somebody on a stage and waving their hands over some mystical box. I don't know. It's kind of funny, but the filter in particular, I do think it has a good use. So D-beam, that's kind of unique for this one. It's got some great effects sections in it. There is quite, whoops, that's not what I'm trying to get to. Let's see, effect list. There is, let's see, 45 different effects in this, and some are quite unique to this device. BPM slice flanger, that's pretty cool. Auto pan is nice. Tumbling is a really neat effect. Let me select that and turn it on. You can hear it really does some cool stuff to synth sounds in particular. So I like that one. That's a unique effect here. But there's quite a few effects. And what's really great about this one is that you've got 2 effects in parallel. And you can run them on top of each other, or you can go through and assign. So if I hit function here, I can assign each effect to their own pads so that effect number 1 is only affecting, you know, the top row, and the other effect is affecting the rest, or however you want to set it up. So that's really cool. So yeah, 2 effects that you can run at the same time is definitely a unique feature to the 606 and something that I use all the time. And again, not only just for this machine, but I'll run other machines through it just so I can use these effects on top of it. I've got a video where I show I'm kind of like pre-mastering some external gear through an enhancer and sort of a stereo widener and the master compressor to kind of polish the sound of other things. So even if you're not sampling to this directly, just the effects section has a lot of use. Like I just mentioned, it does have these 2 effects and a final mastering compressor. So I can turn that on, and I can go into the mastering compressor and adjust that independently of the other effects. So you can really dial in quite a nice overall sound using this. That's probably my favorite thing about this device is the effects section, the mastering compressor. Like I said, I use it just to polish up other machines all the time, other SPs, other groove boxes, whatever. So really like that about it. It does have a good chop function on it. So let's see here. Let's sample a sound real quick. That's probably the best way to start. All right, so I'm going to turn this on. We're going to say sampling. Yes, please. Whoops. Turn this on. I'm going to hit sampling. I'm going to put it on a pad. Auto trig. I'm going to turn that on. Now it's waiting for signal. Okay. There it is. All right, so now I've got that. I'm going to show you the chop function on this real quick. And you can see it shows you the wave file here. You can use these cursors to zoom out. Use the jog wheel to move through it. You can set the chop level. I'm going to tell it to be pretty aggressive and really look for those transient. You can see the lines there where it delineated the chops. So that's a great feature. I wish other SPs had that. Some of them do, but a lot of them don't. So chop's a great feature. I like that a lot. There's also a lot of MIDI utilities here. It does have MIDI in and out, so you can sequence other things with this. You can control, you know, you can map these functions to functions in your DAW or whatever. It's got USB, which you can access external storage through the USB. Very handy if you want to, you know, have a ton of data that this thing can use. It also uses these guys. This is much faster than the smart media cards the 202, the 505 use. So that's a nice thing. It's still not as fast as an SD card, but it's definitely quicker than the smart medias. Yeah, that's about it, really. I do like this device quite a bit. Like I said, I use it kind of as a studio Swiss Army knife, not always to be a sampler in itself, but in conjunction with other gear. Final thoughts, probably wouldn't be my first choice of an SP, but it's definitely worth taking a look for. 250 to 300 is about the range I would say is fair for these right now. I know a lot of the SPs are going up in price because they're popular these days. This is one you don't see very often as well. If you do come across one and you're interested, definitely test it, because these little momentary buttons, look, I'm pushing that one, it's not doing anything right now. This F3 button and this function button get used all the time. And so I have to really mash on them. It's just a matter of time before I'm gonna have to take this apart and fix it, and I'm not looking forward to it. But so yeah, if you come across one, do test it. I would say that's this case for probably any vintage gear. but definitely do that. That's a weak spot on these. All right, so that's my thoughts on the SP-606. Like I said, if you want more in-depth overview, I did that before. Go check that video out. Check out the other SP videos that I'm doing. On our next episode, we're going to get into the SP-555. So stay tuned for that. Like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Let me know if you have questions in the comments. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Have a great day.